And now, on top of everything, we have failure of international law, rise of authoritarianism, militarization, and war. And then we have the climate crisis. So the point here is that the climate crisis is connected to all of these. It's not a separate, isolated, siloed issue, which is the way it has been framed in mainstream climate policy even. So it's really powerful to be able to help students see that it's all connected because, and this is where a lot of my work is on climate obstructionism. That is who has been blocking the efforts to have transformative climate policy, transformative climate action. And that's what some of my research is about, is actually studying who and which organizations, what individuals, what business, corporate entities have been blocking climate policy. And there's a lot there. And I think that is helpful for students and for ourselves to recognize it's not just, oh, it's hard and we don't know how to do it yet. No, there are very strategically for decades people investing huge amounts of money to stop climate action, right? So that needs to be a groundwork that you can teach students. There's a lot of resources about it. So people understand it's not, oh, it's a hard thing, it's a hard problem, it's this problem that somehow is just so difficult. That isn't the case. There's actually obstruction, there's blockage, there's like intentional, big bucks, a lot of money and support to stop climate action. So that is just, I think, a helpful way, again, to kind of frame the climate justice piece. What climate justice for me, and this is in my book, is moving away from climate isolationism, which is thinking about climate as a discrete, separate thing, and thinking about it much more integrated with all those other crises that we're facing. So instead of thinking about individual behavior, we think about collective action, and that's a fundamental piece of the curriculum, which is amazing. Instead of only focusing on technological change, we also need to think about social change. Instead of only focusing on profit-seeking priorities, how can people make money while we do our climate action? How about thinking about well-being priorities? And that was also part of the curriculum. Instead of wealth accumulation mindset, how about sufficiency mindset? Like, do you have enough? Does your family have enough? Does your community have enough? If, what about the other communities or other households? Do they have enough? Like this, the sufficiency mindset rather than hoarding wealth mindset is really important and part of what climate justice is. Instead of linear assumptions that this causes that, obviously much more complex system assumptions. Instead of focusing on innovation, so everything's about innovation, new things, new ideas, new approaches. One of the things we don't spend enough time on is exnovation. Exnovation is how to stop doing things that we know are destructive, right? For our own health, for ecological health. And like fossil fuel phase out is an example. With all the decades of work on energy innovation for energy transition, which is all in the mainstream climate action, there's very little investment on how to phase out fossil fuels globally. There's little attempts here and there for specific households or communities, but to phase out fossil fuels, but they are narrow in focus and geographic location, and we really have to think holistically about the whole Earth system. And throughout the 30 years of climate policy and climate action, fossil fuels exploration and use have been going up. So we've been completely ineffective in fossil fuel exnovation, how to stop using fossil fuels. And finally, concentrating wealth and power, and instead of distributing wealth and power, and that kind of connects with what I was saying before there. One of the other amazing organizations that I'm part of here in Ireland is the National Women's Council and the Community Work Ireland. This organization just yesterday actually launched these toolkits, two toolkits that are free PDFs available for anybody to download. And I think they're an amazing resource. They are, one is about the impacts of climate change on Irish communities. So this is more of an agitate, they call it, stream. And so it just has very good graphics, simple language, explanations of what things are. And what it does, again, from a climate justice perspective, it does talk about retrofits and home heating, but it talks about how many families and households are unable to pay their energy bills and energy poverty. And particularly there's a blurb here about energy poverty and the traveler community. And we all deserve warm homes and clean and affordable energy. So like there's a lot of really good climate justice lens, climate action information here. So this is toolkit number 1 on the impacts of climate change in Irish communities. And then this one is a toolkit for developing campaigning strategies for feminist climate justice. So this is more action oriented. This is about like how to facilitate meetings and that are very inclusive, and how to work with people and bring people together. So this one might be a bit advanced, or not necessarily for your, but potentially, but it's worth, anyway. So I just wanted to mention these both because I noticed in the curriculum, you have to, there's reducing negative consequences, individual versus collective, and this is very much about collective and community-based action. So I think that could be helpful. Actually, we know for sure that greenhouse gas emissions are going up. It has to do with fossil fuels and deforestation and all kinds of things. But so then there was a shift to kind of delay strategies. Okay, yes, climate change is happening, and we'll do something, but we'll do something, we'll recycle a little bit if we can, when we can, something that isn't transformative. And that's obviously still going on. A lot of programs, a lot of organizations, a lot of universities, a lot of educational institutions are trying to do something, and there's only so much people can do. We're all constrained. But some of it is quite strategic, saying, okay, we're doing something, but let's not really change anything. But then there's also distraction, and this is where, I think creating other polarization in society, like controversy about gender or trans people, or things, or even abortion, other controversial issues that get people really deeply, emotionally, I see now as part of climate obstructionism, because what it's doing is distraction away from this very fundamental crisis, that is undeniable at this point. But a lot of people really don't want people to be spending a lot of time thinking about it, because they want things to stay the same, and just let's try to make as much money as long as we can, even though we know this isn't going to end well, but let's keep going, So anyway, that's one framing there. And one of the things I've done research on is about the fossil fuel industry influence in education. So there are a lot of schools. I don't know the landscape here in Ireland, and I think the public system is better. It's publicly funded schools. But our research was on Canada, the United States, the UK, and Australia, all big fossil fuel countries. The amount of fossil fuel industry funding in the education system is way surprising, like you would not believe. In universities is what we focused on, but it's happening at the high school level and primary and secondary schools as well. And obviously schools need money, right? Schools are underfunded in so many cases. So if a company offers, we'll support you and we'll do this energy program, energy education, climate education even, but it's often funded by climate obstructionists. So they're very strategic in doing that. And what a lot of this research has revealed that this has been going on for decades. And most people don't realize how intentional the efforts are. The richest men in the world They're tech bros. Some people are now calling them tech overlords, right? They have so much control over so many things. But the tech companies, because of AI, they are now big fossil fuel advocates. So because they need the data centers, they need the energy for AI, because we're ramping up energy usage like in huge ways. So they used to, all these companies like Google, Meta, they used to have like sustainability efforts, and they still do, but it's being very much toned down, and now they're pushing fossil fuel interests. And so they're using a lot of the same narratives and technique, discourse and policy advocacy that the fossil fuel companies are. And I just want to mention a few campaigns that might be helpful and that some people might be interested in. One is the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is talking about this ex-novation. It's the one global initiative that's trying to get countries, cities, educational institutions to commit to trying to work together to figure out how to phase out fossil fuels. And it's all around the world, all scale of people can get involved with this, but it has that global solidarity kind of thing. Project Dandelion, you may, also is kind of very global here, but it's Irish-based because Mary Robinson, the former president of Ireland, has initiated a women-led global campaign for climate justice. That's what this little dandelion thing. Dandelions are really interesting because the reason they picked that as a symbol is because they're ubiquitous. Dandelions are really resilient. They pop up everywhere. We think of them as like a negative or a weed, but they're actually really strong and important ecological species. And so that's another initiative that people could get involved in. I know that both of those are global examples, and a lot of the curriculum seems to try to encourage local engagement. So, but you can connect some of that. And then I'm just going to mention an initiative that I'm involved in. We just started this up, Climate Justice Universities Union. It's about trying to get universities and higher education to be leveraged for climate justice, which is not, right? As I mentioned at the beginning, so many things that are happening in higher education are actually reinforcing kind of this non-transformative climate action and sustainability. So we are a collective of people, it's mostly throughout the island of Ireland, but also international, and we're providing maybe a little bit of the same thing that your Climate Action Teachers Association is providing, like supports, sharing resources, and kind of strategizing as well.